When I married Ethan Navarro, I thought I was marrying peace. He was kind, quiet, and patient, everything my life before him wasn't. What I didn't realize was that his calm came from habit, not heart. The kind of calm you learn from growing up in a house where silence was safer than truth. His family carried their reputation like armor. The Navarros were known in our town for their wealth, influence, and obsession with appearances. They didn't just live comfortably, they lived carefully. Every smile was calculated, every gesture rehearsed. His mother, Margot Navarro, was the queen of that kingdom. Perfect posture, pearls at every occasion, and eyes that missed nothing. The kind of woman who didn't need to raise her voice to make you feel small. When Ethan first introduced me to her, she smiled like someone inspecting an antique, polite interest wrapped around quiet judgment. "So," she said, her tone smooth as silk, "you're the woman who's stolen my son's focus?" I laughed nervously. I wouldn't say stolen, more like shared. She smiled wider. "Oh, darling, we don't share Ethan in this family. We protect him." That was my first warning. At first, Margot was charming. She called often, invited me to dinners, complimented my cooking even when she didn't mean it. Her kindness always came with an aftertaste. When I tried to offer help, she'd say, "Oh no, dear, you wouldn't understand how we do things." When Ethan praised me, she'd smile and say, "Of course he's grateful. You make him feel needed." The words sounded sweet, but everyone was a scalpel. I thought maybe she'd warm up with time. Instead, she got bolder. One night, during a family dinner, Margot raised her glass, smiled at me, and said, "To tradition the kind you can't learn from the outside." Then she turned to me and added softly, "You'll never understand this family, but that's all right. Not everyone is meant to." Her words landed like a slap disguised as a toast. The room laughed politely. Ethan reached for my hand under the table, but his touch felt empty, a gesture to maintain peace, not love. I stayed quiet, not because I agreed, but because I was learning. A few days later, I overheard something I wasn't supposed to. I'd gone to drop off a basket of muffins at their estate, a peace offering. As I approached the sitting room, I heard Margot's voice through the half-open door. "She's sweet," she said to Ethan's father, "but she'll never belong. She doesn't have the spine for this family." I froze. Her husband murmured something I couldn't make out, but Margot's laugh followed light, almost amused. "She'll leave, eventually. They always do. The Navarros don't make room, we make examples." I stepped back before they could see me, my chest tight, my palms shaking. That night, I didn't tell Ethan what I heard. I didn't cry or shout. I just watched him. The way he flinched every time his phone buzzed with her messages. The way he always said, "She just worries too much." No, she didn't worry. She controlled. For weeks, I said nothing. I smiled when I had to. I played along, but inside, I was collecting pieces, small, sharp truths she didn't know I could see. And then I found it. The message. Ethan was asleep beside me when his phone buzzed. I wouldn't have looked if I didn't already know who it was. Margot. "She's trying too hard, Ethan. You can't build a real marriage on pity." Margot. "Don't argue. I'm your mother. I know what's best for you." But it wasn't just what she said, it was what he said back. Ethan. "She's fragile right now, Mom. Please, don't push her." Margot. "Then you'd better make sure she doesn't break. I won't clean up another mess." Another mess. I took a photo of the conversation and stared at it until the screen dimmed. My heart didn't ache anymore. It hardened. That was the moment I understood everything. I didn't need to belong to this family. I needed to show them that I already understood it better than they ever wanted me to. The next morning, I called Margot and invited her for lunch. "Just us," I said. "No Ethan." There was a pause on the other end, then a laugh. "Oh, that sounds intriguing. What's the occasion?" "Closure," I said softly. We met at her favorite restaurant, a place where the staff greeted her by name and her reflection sparkled in every surface. She arrived in beige silk and quiet confidence. "You've chosen quite a place," she said, glancing around. "I thought you'd feel at home," I replied. We ordered tea. The waiter poured it carefully, and I waited until we were alone. "You once told me I'd never understand this family," I began. She smiled faintly. Did I? Yes, and you were right at first. I leaned forward, sliding my phone across the table. But I do now. Her smile faltered as the screen lit up. She saw the messages, her own words, her manipulation, her poison typed out in perfect clarity. Her hand trembled as she reached for the cup. You shouldn't go through your husband's phone, dear. It's unseemly. And trying to destroy his marriage is what? I said quietly. Maternal instinct? She said nothing. I used to think you hated me because I wasn't good enough, I continued. Now I know it's because I see through you. You want control, not family, power, not peace. Margot's lips pressed into a thin line. You have no idea what I've done to protect him. I think I do, I said. And that's what makes this so tragic. She stared at me, expressionless, but her eyes said everything. Fear, pride, disbelief. I stood up slowly. You were right about one thing, I said softly. I'll never understand this family, because I refuse to become like it. And with that, I left her. Sitting in the reflection, she built one that no longer hid her. That night, Ethan asked why his mother called him crying. I didn't answer. I just said, she'll be fine. She finally saw herself for who she is. He looked at me differently after that, like he didn't quite know who he married anymore. Maybe he didn't. But for the first time, I did. The next week, Margot Navarro disappeared from social life. No brunches, no charity luncheons, no posts about family legacy. For someone who thrived on attention, her silence echoed through every social circle like a scandal whispered behind manicured hands. Ethan noticed. Mom's not answering my calls, he said one evening, pacing the living room. You didn't say something harsh, did you? I kept my eyes on the book in my hands. No, Ethan, I said something true. There's a difference. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. You don't know her like I do. She doesn't mean to hurt people. I looked up then, meeting his eyes. You're right. She doesn't mean to. She just enjoys it. He flinched at that, not because I was cruel, but because he knew it was the truth he'd been avoiding his whole life. 2 days later, a letter arrived. Not an email, not a message. A physical letter, sealed with Margot's monogrammed wax emblem, navy and gold, just like everything she owned. Inside was a single page. Her handwriting was sharp, elegant, and deliberate. If you think exposing me will make him love you more, you're mistaken. This family devours its own. Be careful what you awaken, Zara. My heart didn't race. It didn't even skip. Because for the first time, her threat didn't feel like power. It felt like fear. Still, I knew better than to ignore a warning from a woman like her. That weekend, Ethan's father, Gerald Navarro, called an emergency family meeting. Margot wasn't there, but her absence spoke louder than words. When we arrived at the Navarro estate, Gerald greeted me with that same quiet judgment his wife had mastered, the kind that says thank you for ruining my dinner. Now let's pretend to smile. He cleared his throat. I've spoken to Margot. She's upset. She says you accused her of meddling. I smiled politely. I didn't accuse her, Mr. Navarro. I proved it. His jaw tightened. Whatever private matter you two have, you'll fix it quietly. We don't air family matters outside these walls. That sentence told me everything I needed to know. Margot hadn't created the rules. She'd inherited them. I looked him in the eye and said, maybe that's the problem. Some things need air or they rot. He frowned. Ethan shifted uncomfortably beside me. Enough, Ethan said softly, glancing between us. We're not enemies. I turned to him. Then stop asking me to live like one. The silence that followed was suffocating. That night, after we left, Ethan sat in the car in silence. Finally, he said, You're changing, Zara. I'm not changing, I replied. I'm remembering who I was before they made me small. He didn't answer, but I saw something flicker across his face at doubt, fear, or maybe recognition. The storm broke 3 nights later. A journalist from a local magazine called me out of nowhere. She wanted a quote about Margot's sudden resignation from the Navarro Foundation for Community Outreach. She said it was for personal reasons, the woman said. But there are rumors of financial discrepancies. Do you know anything about that? I didn't. But I could imagine exactly how it happened. Margot had spent years moving money through that charity. Like a chessboard, everything looked noble, but every move served her power. Sorry, I said, keeping my tone calm. I wouldn't want to speculate. But my heart whispered something else. She's unraveling. The next morning, I found an envelope taped to our door. No name, just a simple note inside. Meet me. One last time. It was unsigned, but I didn't need a signature. I met her at the greenhouse behind the estate. It was empty, save for the scent of lilies and the soft hum of distant sprinklers. Margot stood near the glass wall, wearing black. For once, she looked smaller. Not weak, just human. You came, she said softly. You asked, I replied. She nodded, almost sadly. You've done what no one else could. You made Ethan question me. Congratulations. That wasn't the goal, I said. I just wanted him to see you clearly. She laughed quietly. You think clarity brings peace? No, my dear. It brings destruction. Maybe, I said. But sometimes destruction is necessary for something real to grow. Her gaze hardened. You're clever. I see now why he chose you. But you don't understand what it means to protect a family's name, to sacrifice truth for survival. I do, I said. I just refuse to do it. She studied me for a long moment, then reached into her purse and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. This, she said, handing it to me, is the message you think proves you understand us. You don't know the whole story. I opened it. It was a printed email, one I hadn't seen before, from Ethan to her. Ethan, she's not ready for this family, Mom. I'll protect her, but please don't tell her about Dad's deal. I blinked. What deal? Margot's eyes gleamed faintly. Your husband made a promise, one that kept us all afloat. You're living in a house built on his silence. You think you've exposed me? You've only peeled back one layer. My stomach turned. You're lying. She smiled faintly. Am I? Ask him. I didn't respond. I just folded the paper carefully, tucked it into my coat, and turned to leave. Zara, she called softly, be careful. When you understand too much in this family, they make sure you forget. Her words echoed long after I left. That night, I waited for Ethan to come home. When he did, he looked exhausted, worn down by truths he didn't want to face. I placed the printed email on the table. What's this? I asked quietly. He froze. Zara, I can explain. No, I said. You'll tell me. There's a difference. He sighed. My father made some deals years ago to keep the company alive. I signed off on them. Margot's been protecting that secret ever since. So she wasn't controlling you out of cruelty, I whispered. She was controlling you out of fear. He nodded slowly, and now it's falling apart. I stared at him for a long time. Then quietly, I said, You're right. I do understand this family. Too well. I picked up the email, tore it in half, and dropped it into the fireplace. Sometimes knowing the truth doesn't mean carrying it. It means choosing who it burns. As the paper curled into ash, Ethan whispered, What are you doing? Ending the game, I said, for all of us. He reached for my hand, and this time I didn't pull away. Because sometimes understanding a family doesn't mean joining it. It means surviving it.